Why was the officer who killed George Floyd only charged with third-degree murder? Let's discuss. In Minnesota, third-degree murder is essentially deprived heart/implied malice murder, which is defined as an unintentional killing resulting from extremely reckless conduct that manifests a wanton disregard for human life. Now, could intentional murder have been alleged, first or second degree? Probably, but they strategically didn't do that. That's because if they alleged intentional murder, the jury would have to consider whether or not the officer had the actual intent to kill. And if the jury rejects that notion, well, then they risk convicting him of a lesser crime such as involuntary manslaughter. This approach will allow the jury not to focus on the subjective intent of the officer, but of the objective extreme recklessness of the situation. And it gives the prosecution the best chance of a murder conviction, which is what I think is appropriate. What are your thoughts? How to react when you get pulled over by the police? The first step is to record your phone, put it on the dashboard, roll down your window, and put your hands on the steering wheel. You're not going to make any sudden movements until you talk to the police because you don't want them to think that you're hiding something, and then you're going to say this.
Officer, my driver's license is in my pocket. Is it okay if I reach for it?
Now's a good time to inform the officer that you're recording this conversation.
Sir, I am recording this conversation on my phone, which is located on the dashboard.
If the police order you out of the car, you have to get out of the car, but that doesn't necessarily give them the right to search your car.
I will get out of the car. Before I do, I will roll up my window and pick up my phone that's on the dashboard and continue recording this conversation.
You have no obligation to talk to the officer about your day, so this is what you say if they start asking you questions.
Sir, again, I would not answer any questions unless I have my lawyer present.
Best tip I can give is make sure you're respectful to the officer and make them feel safe. That will better increase your chances of having a successful interaction. Hey y'all, I just made a video about the most frequently asked questions I got about the video with respect to why George Floyd's killer was only charged with third-degree murder. The video is located on my YouTube channel. I have a direct link to it in the link tree that's located in my bio. See you there. On Friday, June 5th, I'm going to be having a Q&A session with Ricky Kidd, a man who spent 23 years wrongfully in prison for a crime he did not commit. We are going to be discussing the current issues happening today, the George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery killings, the Black Lives Matter movement, police brutality, and the protests. This is all possible thanks to you. Hey TikTok, I need your help getting in touch with Mr. Resilience, Ricky the Kid. Now more than ever, we need to discuss criminal justice reform. So please leave your questions in the comments below about what topics you would like Mr. Kid and I to discuss. The interview is going to be recorded and broadcast on my YouTube channel at AttorneyTom. The link can be found in my bio. I hope to see you there. If a tree falls down, generally the owner of the property the tree is on is liable for any damages. A tree in my backyard fell a couple of days ago, but it did not cause any collateral damage to my property or my neighbor's property, so I got lucky. Can George Floyd's family sue the Minneapolis Police Department for money damages? A lot of people have been asking me, do I anticipate a lawsuit being filed in civil court under 42 U.S.C. Section 1983? And that answer is yes. Causes of action under Section 1983 are brought for civil rights violations, and normally they are extremely difficult to prove. The standard is usually deliberate indifference. However, I personally think that that standard is absolutely met here. And for reference, deliberate indifference is more than just negligence. It's looking the other way. The ex-officer who killed George Floyd had 18 prior complaints on his record. And the fact that the city of Minneapolis and their police department allowed him to stay on the force after so many prior instances shows deliberate indifference, in my opinion. Let me know your thoughts and questions. Can George Floyd's family sue the Minneapolis Police Department for money damages? A lot of people have been asking me, do I anticipate a lawsuit being filed in civil court under 42 U.S.C. Section 1983? And that answer is yes. Causes of action under Section 1983 are brought for civil rights violations, and normally they are extremely difficult to prove. The standard is usually deliberate indifference. However, I personally think that that standard is absolutely met here. And for reference, deliberate indifference is more than just negligence. It's looking the other way. The ex-officer who killed George Floyd had 18 prior complaints on his record. And the fact that the city of Minneapolis and their police department allowed him to stay on the force after so many prior instances shows deliberate indifference, in my opinion. Let me know your thoughts and questions. A judge just granted Carole Baskin ownership of Joe Exotic's former zoo. This is because Carole Baskin had a judgment against Joe Exotic and he was unable to pay, so the zoo is collateral. Let me know your thoughts.
This video is extremely important, so please keep watching. Please do whatever you can to share this message because everybody needs to hear this that lives in the United States. Today in Donald Trump's speech, he threatened to completely militarize the country if governors do not comply to bringing the National Guard into their state. If worse comes to worse, this would literally be him declaring martial law. If you don't know what martial law is, put on your seatbelts. Although this has not happened yet, martial law is when the president can literally take civil rights away from the people of the United States. It would also mean that the military is coming into all cities to control the people. It also means that every single branch of the government no longer has control of the people, only the president does. This would be directly impacting me, you, anybody on the right. Every single person in the United States would be drastically affected by this. Martial law would literally take away our right to free speech, which is exactly what conservatives and people on the left fight for every single day. If you are conservative and you are watching this and being completely okay with this, I need to ask you a question. Are you siding with Trump because it fits your moral compass? Or are you siding with him because he's a Republican? This no longer is about right and left or who you support. This is about fighting for the common good of the population of the United States. Do not support Donald Trump.
Breaking news, the officer who killed George Floyd's charge has been upgraded to second-degree murder. Also, the other officers are being charged with aiding and abetting second-degree murder and aiding and abetting manslaughter. My guess is the charging strategy changed when the Minnesota Attorney General took over the case, and he's willing to go for the riskier conviction in order to get the higher payoff, the more time in jail. So to recap, now the jury will have to consider the officer's subjective intent. What are your thoughts on the new charges? Do you think it's worth the risk to have the jury consider his subjective intent? Let me know in the comments. Hey TikTok, so there's an inaccurate video about martial law going around. Here's what you need to know. First, martial law occurs when there's a suspension of civil authority and an imposition of military authority. Second, martial law is actually never mentioned in the Constitution. It's a hybrid of Article 1, Section 8 and Article 1, Section 9. 3, martial law is most closely associated with the suspension of the writ of habeas corpus, which is the ability to imprison someone without due process. There are limits to martial law. Martial law means military law, and you can't just declare military law for any reason. According to the Supreme Court, martial law can never exist when courts are open. It's also confined to the locality of actual war. The COVID-19 outbreak is not a war, and additionally, local and state governments are still operating. You probably can't declare martial law. And even if martial law is declared, it doesn't mean all rights are suspended. I've been making a lot of videos about your rights during this difficult time, and watch them if you want to educate yourself or ask me questions.
Mom, how many likes on TikTok for me to get Twitter?
375.
Okay, then. Please, guys, help.
A fictional character who really needs a lawyer, part 1. The cabbage guy from Avatar. So real quick, here's what you need to know about martial law. So the Supreme Court has said martial law can only exist when the court system is closed and it's confined to the locality of actual war. So let's analyze this against Trump's threat to send the military to stop the protests and riots. 1, the courts aren't closed. And in fact, you're seeing the court system work. In Minnesota, they're charging George Floyd's killers with criminal charges. So just on that fact alone, you can't declare martial law. And even if martial law was declared, which it's not, it's confined to the locality of actual war. So if Trump did declare it, which he didn't, it would be confined to the very, very narrow location where it was. So it wouldn't be a declaration of martial law for an entire state or entire country. It would be very, very specific. President Trump has threatened to use the military not under martial law, but under the Insurrection Act of 1807. Please understand, I'm not getting into the politics of this. I'm just talking about the law. And if you want to learn what martial law is in more detail, I posted old videos that I made about this. Reminder, tomorrow, Ricky Kidd, who spent 23 years in prison for a crime he did not commit, and I are hosting a Q&A on my YouTube channel. We're going to be talking about the current events of today and how we can reform the criminal justice system. The link to YouTube is in my bio.
Put a finger down, Crazy Girl Edition. Put a finger down if you've ever checked a guy's snap score because he wasn't replying to you. Put a finger down if you've ever checked a guy's location because you didn't trust that they were being honest with where they were.
Yesterday, the ACLU filed a class action lawsuit against the Minnesota police for targeting journalists. What are your thoughts?
Water, earth, fire, bitches. Long ago, I used to get all that shit, know what I mean, dog? But then everything changed when my ex-wife attacked. Only a lawyer, master of all the courtroom bullshit, could help me. But when I needed him most...
driving the wrong way. This is crazy. Oh.
If you are arrested while protesting, here's a list of lawyers willing to represent you for free. That's a great question as to why I'm not offering to represent protesters for free. So I'm a catastrophic personal injury attorney. Think refinery explosions, oil tanker collisions, stuff like that. And while I am licensed to practice criminal law and I have a good understanding of it, I do not actively practice it every day. And people contact my office all the time asking for legal services that are outside my wheelhouse, and I always give them the same analogy. I tell them, if you're going in for heart surgery, you want a heart surgeon performing that operation. Not an orthopedic surgeon, not a neurosurgeon, but a heart surgeon. And I'm not a heart surgeon for your particular case. And you have to remember that the concept of offering legal services for free sounds just, but you have to remember when you're representing somebody in a criminal case, their life and freedom are at stake. And I would not feel comfortable representing somebody unless I knew I was prepared. But thanks for the nice words. Does that make sense?